of, you know, how much is this really helping me? And sitting there and even listening to what I have to do to, when this drill happens and not knowing if it's a drill or not. I remember when I was younger, I think I was in about 4th grade. I went to St. Mary's in Spring Lake, and there wasn't that many of us, so we were all super close. And we knew pretty much everything about each other. We were family. And there was a point where when they stopped saying, we are now having a lockdown drill. They would just say, we are now having a lockdown. Which, when that day switched, we were not warned. And that was a very scary day for me and all of my friends. I remember I was in the computer lab downstairs, and we were on our computers doing our little dance mat typing, learning how to type. And it came up with announcements and said, we are now having a lockdown. And we all went to the front of, behind this one wall. The teacher locked the doors, covered the windows, and we sat there and we waited. And there was someone had jiggled the door. And I remember there was a friend next to me, someone who I knew very, very well. I'd known her since kindergarten. And she had never really suffered with anxiety or anything like I have. I have a lot of it. Anyway, so she just sat there, and I remember her just looking at me and going, I'm so scared. She was like, is this real? Like, I don't know, they didn't tell us. And, she was rocking back and forth, and she was praying. She was just praying. She was like, please let me make this out. Now, I still to this day do not know. I'm quite sure that it was a drill, but we were never told. And so we all sat there, for the rest of the day scared, and went home, and, nothing was ever said. And then we moved on. So that is kind of how our drills go, I guess, in a sense of that you don't know what it's going to be. And so now what they do is every once in a while they have police officers come in, and they walk the building and check to make sure all the doors are locked and that we're safe and we're doing what we need to do. And that's very, very scary to just watch that happen sometimes. So also another thing too I find very interesting, I guess, not interesting, upsetting is a better word, is that when there's a fire drill, certain teachers, or there is no set in stone right now currently. From the last information that I was given was that they were given like a suggestion as to kind of wait to see what's happening. If we're having a fire drill, not to immediately evacuate the building. Now that seems kind of counterintuitive, that you want to get out of the building if it's on fire, right? Well, the problem is that there was a mass shooting where someone had pulled the fire alarm to make it seem that there was a fire, and then they shot people. Now, that's scary because now on top of it, you don't know if it's a fire or if it's an active shooter drill. So now you kind of go into semi-lockdown, semi-fire drill, and it just becomes very confusing for a lot of kids and teachers too. I can't imagine they feel very much in charge of every single student in that room, watching them and trying to keep them calm and keep themselves calm and composed. I can't imagine that being easy. Me just trying to take care of myself and make, of course, your brain, you start to react like you were talking about, and how you start to think about yourself, So I can't imagine them having to train to turn that off and watch all these other kids, So that's kind of the drills, and I wanted to kind of put you in our shoes in that way. Last spring, we had a gun threat at Spring Lake, and I remember, it was taken care of, but I personally felt, and a lot of students that I talked to felt, we didn't feel that it was taken care of in a way where we felt we knew we were safe. They were like, we'll have an extra police officer. We were like, what is one gonna do? So what happened was we were having our cardboard boat races. So one of our, a certain class, they make these cardboard boats, and we go into the aquatic center and we race them. It's a super fun little school-wide activity for 30 minutes, so, get out of class. And, well, my class ended up not going that day. But I remember we heard about it the day before, as there was someone who was threatening to shoot us during that. And the Aquatic Center, I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Spring Lake Aquatic Center, but it's very, very open. There is nowhere to hide behind anything because it's the pool, and then you would go up some stairs and around, and there's a small little glass thing, maybe goes up to here, but it's glass. There's nowhere to hide, and it would have been a perfect opportunity. And I remember speaking to my mom, who's right over there, and I said, Mom, I'm scared. I don't want to go to school tomorrow. There's many days I don't want to go. I'm scared. I don't know if I'm going to walk out those doors again. I don't know. But that particular day, I was scared to go, and I said, Mom, I don't know if I want to go, but I need to go because I had so many absences because I'd been sick prior to that. And that is something I cannot control. I had appointments, and so what was difficult was that my mom and I had to make this decision together on, am I going to go to school and possibly risk my life because I could be punished by getting behind, by getting another absence that could, if I don't do well on my exam, I do not pass that class and I have to do it again. Because you would legally have to go to school. You have to. And so you sit there and you're like, you feel so conflicted because you're like, I'm risking my life to go get an education, but I'm forced to go and I don't feel safe. And I know that for my mom and I, that was a very hard decision. I did go, and nothing had happened, and thank goodness, but it was definitely very scary. And a lot of students didn't show up that day. So I guess I was just here to talk about the anxiety that it creates and how a lot of students don't feel safe in their schools and they don't know if they're going to walk out that door again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabby. Very powerful. And Mike, to speak for the schools.
All right, thank you. Yeah, one of the great things about coming here is actually being humbled a little bit, because if you look at my title, it's terribly obnoxiously long, but on the opening slide, it was assistant super, which I think the proper word for that is sidekick. So if that describes me, that's probably pretty good. What also strikes me just listening to the other panelists here is that one at the same time that schools are both a microcosm of the larger society and the community around them, and they are a community in and of themselves. And so I appreciate everything that's being said, because everything here happens inside the school system itself, and then we're trying to see how we operate and do education at the same time with all these other issues as well. So that's what I'm going to try and cover here today. I apologize, I'm going to go really fast. For those taking notes, stick around, I can give you some PowerPoint slides or whatever afterwards, and I will talk slowly with anyone after this if you want to. All right. So what I'm going to do is cover this just generally speaking in terms of what schools are doing across the nation, including the schools in this area. And then I'm going to talk about a couple regionally based initiatives that we have going here. I'm not going to get into any particular school or district, just primarily for tactical reasons. And also at the ISD, we aren't in line in terms of their security and the planning that they do. We try and coordinate and help them and come alongside, that sidekick thing again. But each school and school district has their own context and their own way of doing things, and we just try to work regionally to make that a little bit consistent across that. As you're well aware, there's been several shootings across. I'm not going to go through those, but the one thing that is almost predictable after every one of those is that there are no shortages of legislators, well-intending legislators that are willing to legislate various products that are coming out. In fact, it's almost to the point now where I can know by email if there's been a school shooting someplace because of the vendor emails that come across my desk at that point. And so I'm not going to get into the specifics of those type of things, but just talk generally about where we're going. But I do want to say, in terms of that walking in each other's shoes, superintendents and boards and those involved in schools, tremendous amount of pressure to do something like was being set up here. The media wants that. They want the local reaction to that. Everybody wants to feel safe and so forth to do that. And at the same time, what are we doing to the educational process all the way down to what Gabby was talking about? And I will say that Gabby is not just speaking for herself. She is representing many kids across the nation in the schools. And so hear it as that, as you heard her speak. So what we try to do is actually follow, this is a modified chart from the Department of Justice, and on the top side is really how any individual, kind of the mental process they go through. So this is not an issue of mental issue as far as the chart goes. This is just mental processing in terms of that they have some sort of grievance, whatever that was. It may be mental health induced, or it may be some other induction of that. But then they're going to go through this process, and eventually they're going to act out. And so what we're trying to do at each of these stages along that process is to have countervailing measures at the school that we're trying to work with, so that we can try to intercept at the lowest level possible. So we don't have to deal with what do we deal with in terms of response, but as much as possible cut it off at the pass as we go. So kind of following that is the way the presentation is going to go here. So at the lowest level is really trying to create culture, a culture of safety and security in the schools. So the Be Nice program is just one of the programs that happens to be in this area. I'm not endorsing it, it's just one of the examples that are out there. The effort is to really work on the culture of the school itself. And there's a lot of different efforts going on in schools with that. And then kind of moving up the scale is what happens when you start to have indications that there might be something happening. And so, as already been mentioned, the need for school response teams or threat assessment teams, those are being developed in the schools as well to increase maybe we should be working with these students and getting them supports lower in at that level, rather than waiting to find out afterwards that there was this letter 2 years later that they found with that. So there's a lot of efforts going with that. A lot of communication systems. OK to Say is just one of the ones. It's put out by the Attorney General of the state of Michigan. And the idea there is it's kind of the report something if you're seeing it, and then there are mechanisms for that to be brought back into either the schools or law enforcement, so that, again, the idea is the appropriate help can be provided at the appropriate time for these students. Then moving up is the actual hardening of the schools, and that's where you're trying to stop someone breaching the school and causing havoc inside the school. And so there's a lot of efforts along that. There's some, the Michigan State Police has had some safety and security grants recently. Some of the schools in this region have received that. And so those are a lot of things like redoing secure school, the entrances, or reducing the number of points of entry into schools, hardening some of the glass, the doors, those type of things, to buy time so that our friends at the other end of the table here can respond in and come in and neutralize the threat that's coming in. There are designs that are happening. There's a program called CPTED, which is crime prevention through environmental design, in which you're looking at the very design of the school and just how hallways work and school or the classrooms are designed and that sort of stuff to create safety in the school as you're working with that. Along with that are other things like some of the surveillance